Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Kris. This is enemy number one, Admiral Kolchak and the Russian Civil War. We already did the rise. If you see me doing that right there, if you can click the thumbs up for me, that helps tremendously. It's free, and it helps more than you'll know. You can subscribe to the channel. I can't. I don't want to click that again and then have to click it again. You can subscribe to the channel. That helps me out. That's free. And you can donate to the channel through the thanks button. You don't have to. If you do donate and you request a video, your name will be sponsoring that video. And if you request a video without donating, it takes a little bit longer. This was a request. You just kind of, if you don't donate with the request, then you don't get the big sponsor, the big shout out. You know, if you don't care, you don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But it is appreciated. Any type of money that I make off this channel is through the support of the people who watch. So any and all is appreciated, but only if you can. All right. So we're going to break this into two parts, just like I did with the other one. Sorry. I'm popping the peas. So we will go ahead and start this video right now. No, we're not. Wait a minute. Cut. Let's just redo the whole thing. Right now.
November 1918. In Western Europe, the 4-year slaughter of World War I is drawing to an end. But across the former Russian Empire, a new conflict has broken out. A civil war that rages from Central Europe to the Pacific and will claim an estimated 9 million lives. Lenin, the Bolsheviks and their new Soviet Republic battle for survival against their many enemies, collectively known as the Whites. The Whites' great hope, their newly appointed supreme ruler of Russia, Admiral Alexander Kolchak. He is a war hero, a man of duty and discipline, who believes above all in service to the motherland. Millions look to him to crush the Bolsheviks, avenge the murdered Tsar, and save Russia from chaos and collapse. This is the extraordinary tale of the life and death of Admiral Kolchak, Russia's only supreme ruler. In November 1918, a coup d'etat among white forces in Omsk brought Alexander Kolchak to power as supreme ruler of Russia. The 44-year-old admiral now wielded authority equal to that of a Tsar, with an absolute veto over all new laws. Despite his sudden elevation, Kolchak did not surround himself with luxury, nor move into a palace. He continued to rent a townhouse in Omsk and kept a careful eye on his expenses. He was joined in Omsk by his devoted mistress, Anna Timirova, who also worked as his translator. His wife and son, who he'd not seen in more than a year, were still in Crimea. They would soon travel to Paris, where many white Russians were now living as refugees. As supreme ruler, Kolchak faced challenges on a scale difficult to comprehend. And it was soon clear that he was neither a natural nor a sophisticated politician. His manner was stiff and severe, his sentences short and to the point. If he failed to get his way, he became frustrated and angry. He clung rigidly to his own conception of honor, both for himself and for the motherland. He was, however, extremely hard-working, well-mannered, and could be personally kind and generous. Kolchak's first priority was to have his position as supreme ruler recognized by the Russian people, the army, and other White Russian governments. Equally importantly, he needed recognition from the Allies, primarily Britain, France, and the USA. The previous week, the 11th of November armistice effectively brought World War I to an end. And though fighting continued in many parts of Europe, the Allies would now be able to send far greater resources to support the Whites. However, the Allies no longer needed Russia to rejoin World War I. Now they were more interested in regime change, replacing the Bolsheviks with someone less hostile and more reliable. Initially, therefore, the Allies were alarmed by the unexpected coup that brought Kolchak to power. He immediately set out to reassure them in his first proclamation. "I will not go down the road of reaction or the ruinous path of partisanship. My main objective is to build a combat-ready army, to defeat Bolshevism and establish law and order, so that the people can freely choose the form of government they wish." Whether Kolchak really wanted democracy in Russia would never be put to the test.
I don't, no, I'd never heard of this man before. So what I'm about to say could sound foolish, but he does sound sincere. They're making it sound very sincere with what he's saying, and that he really does want the people to choose their own path, so to speak. So I certainly respect that, if that's really what he wants. But so far, to be considered a czar and yet rent a townhouse and be a stickler with your finances, to me shows a guy who kind of respects the position that he's in, and he's not going to change who he is because of that. And I think that's very important, and it's something that you want. It's something that you need to have in terms of following somebody, because you then can see, well, they're gonna suffer as well. They're not gonna take the best when they don't have to. They're not gonna take the best just because of the position they're in. He seems like somebody who's more than willing to share the joy as much as share the pain. And I'm saying all this because I just have that. I'm really hoping that it's not going to change, but I have a feeling it will, and I'm going to be devastated. Something about it just feels like this is going to punch me right in the face.
In white-controlled areas of Russia, the response to the new supreme ruler seemed broadly positive. Conservatives welcomed the prospect of a strong leader after so much chaos. But the reaction was not long in coming. The left-wing groups that the coup had forced from power, the socialist revolutionaries and Mensheviks, had not given up. They convened their own constituent assembly at Yekaterinburg, where Nicholas II and his family had been murdered by Bolsheviks just 4 months before.
Weren't they, the Bolsheviks, were they all gunned down in a basement? Am I thinking correctly? I hope it didn't say it in the last video. I just knew they were killed. But I thought they were gunned down in like a basement. Maybe it was a backyard. I don't remember.
This assembly refused to recognize Kolchak's new government and called for resistance. In response, the supreme ruler ordered local Czech troops to arrest all its members. Several were later murdered during a revolt in Omsk, in which several hundred socialist revolutionaries were killed. Kolchak had shown himself unafraid to use his new dictatorial powers, and such firm action helped to shore up his position. On the other hand, the socialist revolutionaries His allies in the fight against the Reds until a few weeks before were now among his most bitter enemies. They accused Kolchak of wanting to make himself Tsar, which, they declared, made him an even greater threat than the Bolsheviks. Elsewhere, white forces accepted Kolchak's authority. General Yudenich in the northwest, Marushevsky in the north, and General Denikin commanding the Volunteer Army in the south. Areas directly under Kolchak's control were effectively run by military government. Local councils could not be relied on due to their support for socialist revolutionary and Bolshevik policies, such as land reform. Instead, the Whites banned trade unions and returned nationalized industries to private ownership. Wherever they encountered opposition, White Russian forces were ruthless. When an uprising broke out in Yenisei, Kolchak ordered that any village offering armed resistance was to be destroyed, burned to the ground, the men shot, everything of value seized. Hostages were to be taken, and if locals cooperated with Bolshevik partisans, they were to be shot. In the process of crushing the Yenisei revolt, White forces executed an estimated 10,000 Russians, all in direct consequence of Kolchak's orders. The Bolsheviks were just as merciless in territory they controlled. Some historians differentiate between Red and White Terror during the Civil War. The Red Terror was directed from the top, an official policy of mass murder on class grounds. The White Terror was reactive, improvised, and usually carried out by local commanders. It made little difference to ordinary Russians, who suffered untold miseries in this war and died in unimaginable numbers. In economic terms, Kolchak had one advantage over the Bolsheviks. He controlled 2/3 of Imperial Russia's gold reserves, captured from the Bolsheviks, now stored at Omsk, 490 tons in all. By late 1918, there were several Allied expeditionary forces in Russia to assist the Whites. More important than troops were the arms, ammunition and supplies they were sending, particularly Britain. But the support came with strings. Kolchak was informed by telegram that the Allies expected French General Maurice Janin, based in Vladivostok, to take overall command of all Allied and Russian soldiers. Kolchak rejected the idea outright, declaring he'd rather have no foreign aid than submit to such a proposal.
Got to kind of side with them on that. You're helping us out, but that doesn't mean that you get to take control, because you're not going to fight the war how we would fight the war. So you could decide, I don't want to do this anymore. And then secretly, well, you're going to fight, but secretly be in negotiations to end it. Because, hey, it's not really your war. So, yeah, I get that. I think anyone could probably get that.
Eventually, a compromise was reached. General Janin would command only the Czechoslovak Legion and some other small Allied contingents. Most of these would be held back to guard supply lines and railways. While some historians believe Janin's wounded pride would later have bitter consequences for Admiral Kolchak. The war against the Bolsheviks was always Kolchak's overriding focus. His dream, the recapture of Moscow and Petrograd. From the provisional government, he inherited advanced plans for a major offensive aimed at Vologda. The goal was to break through to White forces near Arkhangelsk and gain access to Allied aid arriving via the northern ports. The offensive began on the 27th of November. The Whites' Yekaterinburg army faced the Third Red Army, which had been ordered to hold a 250-mile front, while suffering from serious shortages of fuel, food, and warm clothing. The attack broke through. The Reds were soon retreating with heavy losses, and on the 24th of December, the Whites took the city of Perm. It was a major victory for Kolchak's forces. They had taken 30,000 prisoners, 120 artillery guns, 1,000 machine guns, and 9 armoured trains. Eager to avenge this
30,000 prisoners? Wow. 9 armored trains. Wow.
humiliating defeat, the Red Army launched a counter-offensive in January. But after small gains and huge losses on both sides, the attack bogged down. The capture of Perm filled Kolchak and his generals with hope, and they organized a new, large-scale offensive for the spring of 1919.
This guy right here. This guy's going to be the one to kill him, isn't he? And this guy's like, I didn't do anything. Look at my mustache. I'm innocent. I'm innocent of everything. I just have a feeling this guy, I don't know who he is. I don't like his look. Huh.
Organized a new, large-scale offensive for the spring of 1919. Their ambitious plan was to attack towards Vyatka and Saratov, break through the overextended Red Army center, and envelop Moscow from north, east, and south. The offensive began in March, and soon White forces were advancing rapidly towards the Volga River. By the end of April, they'd advanced around 200 miles, capturing territory rich in industrial and agricultural resources, and threatened the cities of Kazan, Simbirsk, and Samara. French Prime Minister Clemenceau and British Secretary of State for War Winston Churchill were among those who sent congratulations to Kolchak. For the Whites, Moscow itself finally seemed within reach. And with military success and renewed international backing, Kolchak's government had never looked stronger. The days of the Bolsheviks, it seemed, were numbered. Lenin and the Bolsheviks were deeply alarmed by Kolchak's success. But extraordinary measures had been taken, which would soon enable them to fight back. People's Commissar for Military Affairs, Leon Trotsky, had overseen the doubling in size of the Red Army within a year. Now 1.5 million strong, it was backed up by the full resources of the state, mobilized under a new policy of war communism. In April, Lenin declared Kolchak enemy #1 of the Soviet Republic. All on Kolchak became the Bolsheviks' new slogan. The Red Army's Eastern Front received 2 new brilliant commanders, General Mikhail Tukhachevsky and Commissar Mikhail Frunze. In April 1919, they launched a counter-offensive with 80,000 troops. White Russian forces were soon in rapid retreat. On the 9th of June, Ufa fell, a crucial stronghold of the Whites. At the height of this crisis, Kolchak received a potential lifeline, an offer of military support that might turn the tables on the Reds. Finland, ruled by Russia for 2 centuries, had declared its independence following the Bolshevik Revolution. Finland's regent, Carl Gustaf Mannerheim, now offered to attack Petrograd with 100,000 troops. In exchange, he wanted Kolchak to recognize Finnish independence. Kolchak flatly declined. Even in this desperate hour,
What?
he would not accept any dismemberment of Russia's historic empire.
Oh my gosh.
By August, the Red Army had crossed the Tobol River. But Kolchak had a plan. He was sacrificing territory for time to rest his troops and regroup. As Supreme Commander-in-Chief, Kolchak would regularly visit frontline units to see conditions and speak with the men.
That's very good. That's very, very good.
He would bring extra rations of coffee, sugar and tobacco to lift morale.
What a good guy.
He spoke always of duty and the motherland. But small gifts and rhetoric could not compensate for his forces' increasingly dire situation.
We're going to go back a little bit. No, we're going to pause it right there. We're going to pause it. We're going to pause it right there. Still can't. I'm popping those peas, baby. I like to pop them peas. We're going to just, I don't know. You whatever is comfortable for you, I guess, microphone. You tell me how you want me. So we're going to go ahead and end it there, though. My nose itches. And we'll be back with part 2. And I still think he's a good guy. But I just feel like I'm going to be very upset. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and end this here. This is part 1. We'll be back with part 2. Until then, have a good day, have a good night.